Hello everyone, welcome back to 40 Days, and today we are here with episode 2 of our Military 101 series where we have short explainers to bring out some interesting facets related to the military. And today we have with us Sohraab again. So welcome Sohraab, thank you for joining us again. And today we are covering a very fascinating topic which is on military ranks, and we know that there's a lot of glory attached to the uniform. So today Sohraab, let's dive into some questions and you can share some more things about the ranks.
Sure.
Great. So Sohraab, my first question is very simple. What is the highest military rank in the world and what is the highest military rank in India?
Well, in the world, it depends from country to country, but usually the term generalissimo is used to denote the highest rank. So, for example, Joseph Stalin was granted this rank by the Soviet Union, or Chiang Kai-shek, the leader of the Republic of China, the dictator, was granted that rank as well. In India, it's Field Marshal or a Marshal of the Air Force or Admiral of the Navy in the Indian Navy. So it depends from branch to branch, but that is the highest rank. It's a purely ceremonial rank, and technically whoever holds that rank never retires from the forces. So they're always on the payroll.
Absolutely, absolutely. And any famous personalities, especially in India, that you can tell us about that actually held these ranks?
I would say the most famous is Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw.
Yeah.
He led our military in the 1971 war to liberate Bangladesh, defeating Pakistan in only 13 days and taking 93,000 prisoners of war.
Yeah.
That's quite the feat. And that's why he was.
Absolutely. So now my second question is that we see on a lot of uniforms, we have our officers wearing red tags on their shoulders. So for example, in the Indian Army, we see them wearing red tags, and same with their headgear as well. So what does it signify, and what sort of a rank can we understand from these badges that they wear?
So this rank, this tag is called a gorget patch, and it's worn by several militaries. But in the Indian military, it denotes someone of the rank of colonel or higher.
Okay.
In the Air Force and the Navy, these patches were introduced later. And in the Indian Army, the patch, it has a different style depending on the rank. So for colonels, it has oak leaves. For brigadiers, it has a star. For major generals, it has 2 stars. For lieutenant generals, depending on the grade, it has 3 stars or 3 stars with 2 oak leaves below it. And for, of course, generals, it has 4 stars.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Where do these symbols come from? Do you have any knowledge about that?
Yeah, the stars that originated from the Royal Navy, and the system has slowly become more and more commonly used by militaries across the world. But this system of stars being added to the gorget patches actually started later on in the Indian military.
Okay.
It was inspired by the Bangladesh Armed Forces.
Oh, really?
And earlier, all generals used to wear oak leaves, and brigadiers and colonels had straight lines. So there's
a lot of influence of other armed forces
on
the way that our military has also evolved. Very nice. Right, so Sohraab, are there any commonalities between the ranks across the world in different armies?
Yeah, there definitely are. Most glaringly obvious in the Commonwealth. So if you compare the ranks of, say, the British Army or the Australian Army or the Canadian Army with that of the Indian Army or even the Pakistan Army or even the Bangladesh Army, they're all roughly the same. With a few differences, like for example, in Australia, they all have Australia written below the ranks, regardless of regiment. That may have roots in the history of the Australian Army because they are historically small. Or say the Bangladesh Army, which now puts 2 pips under its emblem for the general rank instead of just 1. Or there's also one thing that has recently changed, the Pakistan Air Force. Now they've adopted the pattern of the Turkish Armed Forces. So instead of following the traditional Commonwealth Air Force system with the stripes, now they follow the Turkish system. And it's kind of similar in certain ways to
Is this recent?
Yes, it is recent. And even the other ranks, the ORs, they were changed. So in the Pakistan Air Force, it's completely different now. The Turkish pattern is in fact followed by the Azerbaijani military as well. So and also there's the Soviet system. So a lot of commonalities between Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan,
Of course.
even Ukraine up till recent times because of political obligations they had to change. So there are a lot of commonalities between countries that had historical ties. So like I mentioned, the Commonwealth and the former Soviet
Why do countries
states.
feel the need to make these kind of changes into their military ranks? Because essentially, I mean, changing a tradition that's been followed for so long, why do they feel the need to do all of this?
It's mainly because of politics, but also because of a feel of a need to indigenize and decolonize in our context. But those, like even for Ukraine, that's the reason they changed the system from the Soviet-inspired ranks to the NATO-inspired ranks. So, for example, their paratroopers, they used to wear the striped T-shirts known as the telnyashkas under the uniform and blue berets. Now they don't wear the telnyashkas and they wear maroon berets. So that's another example of a change they've recently introduced.
Very interesting. So now, of course, we have three branches of the Indian Armed Forces. We have the Air Force, Navy, and of course the Army. So how are the ranks related in each of these, and how do they also correlate with, say, civilian ranks that we have?
Well, there is a hierarchy developed and there is a precedence that has been slowly developed. Usually, compared to the police forces, the insignia that they wear, usually they rank the corresponding ranks, they rank one rank lower than their military counterparts. So, for example, a Deputy Inspector General who wears the insignia of an Indian Army Brigadier, he'll rank equivalent to a colonel, which is one rank lower to an army brigadier. So that's how it works. And as far as the armed forces are concerned, they all rank equally. So there is a hierarchy developed for that. And there's an entire system.
Right. So you're talking about the hierarchies. Can you just explain what sort of hierarchy really? Can we go into the details of this hierarchy that you're talking about?
Sure. So the lowest rank is a private or a sepoy in the Indian Army, and they have the corresponding ranks in the Air Force and the Navy, obviously. And this comes in the group of ORs or other ranks. Then we have the NCOs or the non-commissioned officers who don't hold a commission, so they aren't entitled to a salute, but they rank higher than the sepoys. Then we have the JCOs in the army who do hold a commission. JCO stands for Junior Commissioned Officer. So they're Naib Subedar, Subedar and Subedar Major. In the Air Force, they're known as warrant officers and they do not hold a commission. And in the Navy, they're the Master Chief Petty Officers and their corresponding classes. After that, we move on to the officers who hold a commission. Earlier, during British times, they were known as KCIOs, King's Commissioned Indian Officers, and that system started after the Indianization policy that was enacted by the British government to introduce more Indians into the higher ranks. So they do hold a commission, and they go all the way from lieutenant up to general. So that's the hierarchy. In the Indian Air Force, the ranks, the officer ranks start from flying officer and they go all the way up to Air Chief Marshal and of course then the 5-star rank. But earlier, the system used to start with a pilot officer, or in the Indian Army, a second lieutenant, and in the Indian Navy, midshipman. But these ranks were removed because the government saw no real use for keeping them. So now the ranks start from lieutenant, flying officer, and sub-lieutenant, respectively, in the armed forces.
So even these ranks are ever evolving in a way.
Yes.
Depending on the grade. So you've told us a lot about hierarchy and ranks, and we all know that these are taken very seriously in the armed forces. So can you tell us about some major protocols that a junior officer must follow in the presence of his senior officer?
So yeah, of course. So like I said, officers in the Indian Armed Forces, they all hold a commission. So that entitles them to a salute. So of course, all juniors must salute any senior who holds a commission. So, of course, they're all entitled to a salute. But that's only in the case that you are wearing headdress. If you're not wearing headdress, then you have to stand in attention. Of course, you have to do that while giving a salute as well. But otherwise, if you're not wearing headdress, you have to stand in attention
Correct.
while greeting them. And but there's an exception to this. In the Indian Air Force, you do not have to wear headdress to give a salute because of the flamboyance of Indian Air Force officers.
Yeah.
They usually would take off their headdress, or they wouldn't, so they wouldn't have to give a salute. So the rules have been changed in the Indian Air Force.
Yeah.
And yes, depending on the branch, the type of salute is also different.
Okay.
So in the Indian Army, the palm faces forward while you're giving a salute. It's to be given with the right hand.
Correct.
In the Indian Air Force, it's supposed to be slanted. It's supposed to be, your hand is supposed to be tilted. This used to be, the salute in the Indian Air Force used to be the same as the one in the Army, but they changed that recently.
Okay.
And in the Indian Navy, it's the same as the one in the Royal Navy or in the US Armed Forces. Your palm has to be facing downwards. That's because of an old tradition. When the Queen in the Royal Navy was when the Queen of the United Kingdom was inspecting some sailors of the Royal Navy, one of the sailors, he had his hands dirty, so his palm was facing downwards while giving the salute. So that slowly evolved into a tradition.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So now I have a very interesting question, if you can answer that for us. So usually we see, say, you go to the army mess, if there's a lady sitting over there, even the senior most officer gets up to greet her, But now that we have so many women commissioned in the armed forces, what will happen if there's a junior lady officer in the presence of a senior male officer? What would the protocol be like?
Well, I suppose that transitions into the civilian spouse. So I guess the husband will rank higher than all the officers there. I'm not sure how that'll evolve, but that would be my guess.
Great. That's an interesting one. Let's see how that actually plays out. So my last and final question is, do you have any anecdotes or funny incidents related to ranks that you can tell us about?
So I remember this joke from a book. The commandant of a military academy is addressing the gentlemen cadets there.
Okay.
And he says that don't be under the illusion that the military takes away your rights and your prerogatives, the same ones that the civilians enjoy. You still enjoy all those rights. If you are given any order, you will always have the last word. And whether that be a bad order, a tough, a menial order, you will always have the last word. So after a while, after the gentlemen cadets have digested this piece of information, he continues on to add, and the last words will always be, yes, sir. So I wouldn't say that's related to the ranks, but
that's a good anecdote
to
share. I think that kind of sums up how the armed
it definitely does.
Right? That's a joke. So, great. Thank you so much, Sohraab. This was an interesting few questions. I think bringing some insights into the way these military ranks are and what actually unfolds. And of course, as you said and as we discussed, they are ever evolving. Maybe we'll see more changes come through as we progress. And there's a lot of changes in any case happening in the Indian Armed Forces and armed forces around the world as well. So thank you so much for this episode, and we'll see you in the next one.
Of course.
Thank you.